history as sausage making. Well, like making sausages, history sometimes can be a pretty messy and ugly looking process, but we all hope that it turns out looking better at the end of it all. The bits that create the whole. History relies on evidence and sources to be able to help tell the true story, small t, small s, and without evidence, without sources, then there is no historical narrative. So we look at evidence, we look at as much evidence as we can to help us understand what has happened, what was experienced, and what was remembered. And I think these three questions are key when you're looking at any sort of historical document of trying to figure out what has happened, what was experienced, and what was remembered. And you will have competing evidence, competing sources, where these various sources will be arguing against each other about what really happened, or what really was experienced, or what really was remembered. Again, this is the sort of messiness of history. And what your role is try to get to what you think is the sort of the truest telling of what happened. And also, good sources will annotate themselves. They will supply more backing, more evidence to support what they say happened, to buttress their position. And this is all in an attempt to create that true story with the small t, small s. Historians, we love libraries, as we have seen from last week, and we also love archives. And oftentimes, libraries have archives in them, like the Consortium Library. Go visit the archive in the Consortium Library. Google historical archives, and you will find a plethora of wonderful digitized archives. So either visit a physical archive today or go online and see what you can find. And it's very impressive what has been digitized by archives to make accessible to a wider public. But check out the Alaska's digital archives, the Alaska State Archives for our beautiful state. The National Archives also has great offerings. The Internet Archive Search is a very useful search engine to be able to locate important materials. The Library of Congress, properly so, is considered to be a wonderful site. The International Institute of Social History is also a great digital archive. This is the place where I did the bulk of my research for my dissertation. The World Catalog is also really useful in terms of trying to see what kind of sources are out there for topics. But this is just the very tip of the iceberg of what kind of archives are out there. So check out the archives, and also refer back to the information on information literacy to remember what sort of the key ideas are to find reliable sources. You need to know where and how to find sources. And it is sort of the search, the hunt for reliable sources. So how do you find reliable sources? How do you find good evidence to use for your argument? Because essentially history is about creating an argument about something in the past, to dig deeper and find out what happened and be able to explain why it's important. And history is a source-based discipline that uses primary sources and archives to try to dig deep into what has happened. Primary sources, they're the sort of the raw stuff of history, and primary sources can be anything. Primary sources can be letters, autobiographies, travel diaries, novels, interviews, newspapers, magazines from that time period, paintings, cartoons. If something has been created at that time period by a human, it is a source. But not all primary sources are equal, and you can kind of consider the source of which source might be a more valuable source than another source. A really good source is a source that is written close to the time of the event that is being looked at, not only in terms of close to the time, but close to the location. So if you have somebody that is reporting about a battle, for example, the battle will have, I think, a more sort of freshness and a better sense of what was experienced, what happened, if it was done at that time by somebody who was actually there and was a witness to the events, versus somebody who writes a editorial to the editor about the battle from the other side of the world. They're both sources, but they're also very different in what they're doing as a source. Secondary sources take this raw stuff, the primary sources, they digest it, and they create a monograph. A scholarly monograph then looks at the primary sources and offers interpretation of those sources to look at what that historian then thinks is important, or tries to tell the story of that event through looking at a great deal of evidence. Then there's the tertiary, which is the compiled, digested, and analyzed secondary sources of scholars that take the work of scholars and compile it into things like dictionaries and encyclopedias and handbooks and things like that. So there's all sorts of different sources, primary, secondary, tertiary. They're all very useful, but again, for the historian, the raw stuff, the primary sources that one finds in an archive is primo. It's what we look for. So, say you found a great archive, you found excellent sources, great primary sources, and then you've got to figure out what you're going to do with them. And that's the research. You need a plan. And you need to have a realistic plan on a research project. It's important to not only know sort of how you're going to plan your project, but your timeline of how much time you're going to need to be able to read and to write and rewrite. This plan is usually referred to as a research prospectus, and you can go online and Google research prospectus and you'll find also a tremendous amount of material, because there's a tremendous amount of material on everything online anymore, isn't there? But the research prospectus includes, but is not limited to by any means, a working title. And you want a title that conveys what your project is about, and a snappy title is good. Right? So a title that can kind of capture your audience, but also reflects what your project is about. A statement of your research question. Most investigations for any kind of discipline are based on a question that is posed. So what is the question? What's the tension? What is the argument about? And then look at the scholarship related to this question. What has been done already based on this topic that you are going to see where you fit into this community of scholars? How does your question fit into what's already been done within this other more general topic? So an overview of the scholarship of what has preceded you in this research, and then a brief research, a brief summary on your research methodology of how you plan on going about tackling your question based on your primary sources, and how it is going to be accomplished through a theoretical approach. And I think it's important to remember that your sources should lead you to your methodology, rather than your methodology leads you to your sources. You don't want your theory to lead your research, but your research to lead you to your theory. That's how historians tend to do that. It's, again, a source-driven discipline. And then to end that all, you want an annotated bibliography that shows what sorts of primary, secondary, and tertiary sources you're going to be using for this research project, and annotate it with a very brief description of its usefulness. Then you figured out your research plan, you know where you're going to get your evidence, and you need to settle down and you need to start reading and writing. And historians tend to love to read. We're big readers and can just spend most of all our time just reading, going to the archives and reading. But reading has to coexist with writing, otherwise writing doesn't get done. There used to be a rallying cry that my friends and I had when we were doing our dissertations, was to read is to write. That when you read, make sure after you read something important that you're going to use for your research, to write not only notes about the reading itself, to write down the page numbers and quotes and things like that, but also to summarize, to reflect on what you have read. And if you consistently do this, then you will have material already created that you can use for your research project. So you will not have a research project unless you commit yourself to doing a lot of reading and a lot of writing. When you are reading and writing, make sure that you have a conversation with your sources. How to analyze a primary source. You can interrogate your sources. Maybe interrogate is too strong of a word. But talk to your sources. Have a conversation with your sources. Who wrote it and what is it? What is its point of view? What's the content of it? And both, just a quick read, but also a deeper read. What is going on in this source? What are the intentions of the author, the perspective of the author? What kind of assumptions and biases can you gather from reading this source? And what is the context of this source? Because the context affects the source of what is going on at that time when it is written, both maybe on a personal level of the author and maybe on a social level. And also consider the audience, the reader, in the reader's context, and what the author is trying to attempt to convey to the reader in this cultural context. Ultimately, there's a hope that historical empathy and understanding can be achieved through a source. And so have a conversation. I think having a conversation with a source can be particularly fruitful when you're reading memoirs or diaries, for example. I believe in the outline. I believe that an outline is a beautiful thing that we should all use when we are creating our projects. It is a framework that creates a structure of the argument, and it creates flow. And it helps you to stay in control of your project rather than have it just kind of lose control and begin to go all over the place. So you want to be in control of the plan, you want to stay in control of the plan, and that's an outline helps you do that. Make sure you have a strong voice, you use strong sources, you have a strong argument, and that's conveyed then as you write. And strong analysis and argument with evidence is key also in creating a research project. Again, it is important to have an outline, whether it's a 3-page paper or a 30-page paper. Also, it's key to be able to answer the so what question. I once had, my dissertation advisor, in fact, wrote on a margin of one of my papers, so what? That's crushing. But you need to always keep in mind when you're writing, how do you answer the so what question? What is important? Why did you write that? Is it significant? So that's ongoing within your project, but also in conclusion, make sure that you're very strong on answering the so what question. Well, this is a very quick summary of how to do a research project. Good luck with thinking about these ideas. Go check out some archives, and we will continue our historical discoveries next week.